I am Liu Nian. After a heartbreak, I entered a game to try to save my father and my cousin, but I ended up becoming the emperor of this small world, and now I possess the sacred body of dual cultivation. On a night, a young man walks down the street, sighing, reflecting on yet another failed job interview. He wonders when his life will finally take off. This young man is Liu Nian, the protagonist of this story. He is a university graduate and has already been rejected 18 times in job interviews. Despite this, he has a beautiful, caring, and attentive girlfriend. They met on the university campus, and she is always there to comfort him when he feels exhausted. Liu Nian tries to forget the frustrating interview, because today marks 3 years of their relationship, and he plans to surprise her. As he leaves the house, he spots a parked car rocking back and forth. He hears some voices and feels that one of them is familiar. As he approaches the vehicle, he sees his girlfriend at the window. She turns inside and says that her boyfriend is outside. The man inside the car tells her to keep going, saying that this makes the situation much more exciting. Liu becomes completely furious upon seeing that scene. At that moment, his mother calls him, and he wonders why she would be calling at this hour. When he answers, she informs him that his father and cousin are not doing well and had to undergo emergency surgery. He asks his mother not to panic and says he will get there as soon as possible. Leaving the cake behind, he runs off to meet his family. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the doctor tells Liu's mother that for now, they are stable but have fallen into a deep coma and may not survive for much longer. He adds that, recently, the hospital has been receiving several patients with the same symptoms, and specialists have been unable to determine the true cause of the problem. Finally, he warns her to be prepared for the worst. A few minutes later, Liu arrives at the hospital looking for his father. His mother informs him that his father suddenly fell into a coma and, desperate, asks what they will do now. She says she had warned him not to play for too long and questions the consequences of what happened. The woman sitting beside her comments that she also tried to warn her son, but he disappeared. Even after filing a complaint about the game with the police, it was in vain, as they were told the server was foreign. Moreover, even if they destroyed the VR glasses, new ones would appear at their doorstep the next day. Liu wonders what kind of game this could be. Then, he remembers that his father had mentioned a game in which he invited his cousin to play and mine money for the family. On his way home, Liu is holding the game's VR headset and remembers that it is an online game, recently released, that became very popular for being extremely realistic. Due to this immersion, the game caused a huge stir in the gaming community. However, his father and cousin fell into a coma after playing it. Because of this, he decides to solve this mystery on his own. When he puts on the headset and enters the game, a welcome message from the system appears. 5 hours later, on Iron Mountain in the wilderness region, a ghost appears searching for a man. It asks for the weapon he received in the beginner's package, and no monster would be able to survive an attack from it. After defeating the ghost, Liu gains some XP, a few coins, and a cultivation stone. He comments that the coins were few, but the stone grants 300 cultivation points, which makes him very happy with his achievement. While collecting his reward, he thinks that, although he hasn't fully understood the game's mechanics yet, so far, it seems that all he has to do is hunt rare monsters outside the city. However, suddenly, he is struck by a purple lightning bolt. He wonders which cursed mage dared to ambush him right after he left the novice city. The people approaching him comment that a level 10 beginner hunting monsters outside the city must be a complete idiot. Another suggests killing him right away to take the rare cultivation stone. They surround Liu, and one of them asks if he is enjoying his time outside. A girl begins to mock his equipment, while another player claims he will show the power of a superior player. Liu steps forward, declaring that it won't be so easy to intimidate him. Then, he uses a stink bomb he got in the beginner's village and takes the opportunity to run while his opponent is trapped in the stench curtain. He feels relieved for having bought all the items from the beginner's village, as they helped him survive. However, before he can fully escape, he is struck by a precise blow to the back. His HP bar is nearly depleted. The attacker is the girl, who thanks the man named Chao for buying that weapon for her. Liu falls to the ground as Chao approaches and declares that this time, he won't let him escape. Besides stealing his woman, he will take all his equipment. Then, he launches another attack and says he will take all his coins and stones. Lying on the ground, Liu wonders why it hurts so much. After all, since it's just a game, it shouldn't feel this real. He feels his heart ache, and his vision begins to blur. He wonders if he is truly about to lose his life. At that moment, a voice emerges, calling Liu king and welcoming him back. Another voice follows, delighted at the return of his majesty. Liu begins to open his eyes and sees two girls in front of him. One of them says she missed him. Seeing this, the protagonist realizes that he has not returned to the novice village, and has no idea where he has ended up. He wonders who these two beautiful girls are, as they do not seem to be players. Then, suddenly, another girl appears, pushes the other two aside, and asks if he remembers her. She approaches and introduces herself as Su Daji, saying that she will finally be able to bathe with him again. The purple-haired girl complains, saying that in her master's past life, he always favored Daji, and she asks that this time, he allow her to serve him. The green-haired girl picks up a mirror and expresses her joy at her master's rebirth. Showing him the mirror, she states that she will help him remember. Looking at his reflection, Liu is shocked. He strikes the mirror and asks what the hell this place is, who the three girls are, and why he has appeared there. The three girls bow to Liu and explain that this place is the tomb of Zhuanyuan. They reveal that they are three demons who guard the tomb. One of them adds that, before His Majesty's death, he foretold that he would be reborn 1,000 years later, and they had been waiting for him in the tomb. The protagonist thinks that, due to a game bug, he accidentally reincarnated as King Zhou, which means he might have a harem of beautiful women. The green-haired girl apologizes for her poor service and asks him to punish her. Liu then replies that she can help him with a little something. Internally, he reasons that these girls are probably NPCs, and as King Zhou, it would not be wrong to ask them to do something for him. Daji says that he may be tired from reincarnating and asks if he would like to take a bath with her. The protagonist, excited, declares that he is so happy there that he never wants to leave. Arriving at another place, he says he didn't expect there to be a hot spring with peach blossom flowers inside. Daji then comments that they had been waiting for him. Looking ahead, he sees the two girls welcoming him. Daji is happy that he has finally arrived, and lets the towel fall into the water. Liu notices a faint aroma of wine in the hot springs, and thinks that this game not only looks real, but even the scents are incredibly realistic. Daji explains that in his past life, he loved bathing in wine because it helped replenish his energy and improve his cultivation. She urges him to hurry, as the girls are waiting. Excited, Liu mentions that the wine cellar and meat garden can enhance cultivation and asks for them to start right away. Daji responds that it will be an honor to join him. The purple-haired girl, Shi Mei, says that she also wants to cultivate with him, while the green-haired one states that since he is a good ruler, he will have to share everything equally. He then says that, in that case, all of them should join in the cultivation practice. Liu thinks that this trio is amazing and that each of them moves him. Then, he asks the universe to let him stay there a little longer. And so, they begin the internal cultivation practice. Sometime later, a system message appears, congratulating him for unlocking a new class, the Human Emperor. Liu realizes that an entire night of cultivation allowed him to unlock a hidden class and learn new abilities. Everything felt so real that he now feels exhausted. Sometime later, the green-haired girl appears and says that something bad has happened. Shen Gongbao brought people to Xuanyuan's tomb, saying that he wants to settle matters with her sister at the Xuanxi Palace. Mei explains that Gongbao is not good at all, as he betrayed the Celestial Kingdom and is complicit with demonic sects. She warns that if he discovers the Lord is there, no one knows what he might do. At that moment, Daji says she will use the concealment technique and asks him to wait until she returns from Zhuan Palace. The green-haired girl urges her to hurry there before that man becomes suspicious. Sometime later, at Zhuan Palace, Daji arrives at the place. Gongbao tells Daji that it has been a long time since he last saw her. Daji steps forward and states that the throne should belong to the king, demanding that he not cross that line. One of the guards intervenes, saying that a mere fox demon dares to attack the future king of the demonic world. Daji glares at him and attacks directly. The guard asks her to wait, not to be rash, and to listen to what Gongbao has to say. Daji stops and orders him to speak quickly. Gongbao stands up and remarks that the emperor's soul dissipated 1,000 years ago. Yet Daji is still so in love. He reflects that, even after all this time, her cultivation power has not diminished, and for this reason, he wishes to win her over. He then begins to explain that ever since the primordial Lord of Heaven and Jiang Ziya designed an online game and transported humans to a small world for training, talents have been selected to ascend to the celestial realm. Meanwhile, humans leave puppets in reality to continue their lives. Since this game contains many elements of popular games and is extremely realistic, more than 1 million players have started playing since its release. Gongbao reveals that he has learned that players can be reborn without damaging their real bodies. But due to a conspiracy, the game's mechanism was adjusted, connecting the demonic world to the small game world. Several demons began invading that world and disguising themselves to collect human essence. When this happens, the player's puppets fall into a coma. Zhang Bao reports that he has already made expeditions to this world, and that some humans who encountered the demons were drained. He suggests transporting more humans to this small world to harvest their essences. This way, they will gain more power, be able to break the barrier, and unify the 3 realms, making this goal attainable. The protagonist hears everything and is shocked to realize that it was not just a game. He understands that some NPCs in the game are actually real and disguised demons, leading him to suspect that his father and cousin may have encountered one of these fake NPCs. Gongbao then recalls that before dying, Emperor Xia told Daji that he would return after 1,000 years. He asks if there are any clues about this, and continues explaining that the essence of the human emperor is extremely precious. If they manage to devour his soul and essence, the cultivation of the demonic sect leader will increase significantly. Even knowing that Daji is in love, Gongbao urges her to understand the gravity of the situation. Daji states that there have been no abnormalities recently, and that even if the emperor were to reincarnate, he would not remember anything and would not return there. Gongbao tells her that the celestial realm has kept them trapped in that tomb for 1,000 years, and that if they help him find the emperor, he will ensure their freedom. He then takes his leave, stating that he will patrol some areas of the game map and will not waste any more time there. After Gongbao's departure, Daji returns to the tomb and frees the protagonist from his pendant. He declares that he must stop Gongbao, as thousands of people could die if he succeeds in his plans, and the demonic realm would invade the real world. Determined, he decides to use his human emperor cultivation to find his father, Jiang, and thwart the conspiracy. The young women kneel before him, vowing to protect and serve him until the end. Daji then reveals a seal and explains that it is an artifact that only those with the emperor's lineage can open, asking him to examine it. Liu takes the object, wondering what might be inside. Daji instructs him to say the words, "I am the human emperor. Open the jade seal." As soon as he does, a yellow light begins to emanate from the seal, which floats in the air before finally opening before him. A sword appears. Upon seeing it, the protagonist becomes furious, as that damned sword is rusted. Shi Mei says that it seems to be the sword of the Phoenix King, which His Highness used to carry. She explains that the aura of the Phoenix Dragon's sword is fierce, capable of breaking through an army of 1 million men, but it requires a large amount of rare materials to be activated. Shi Mei says she will send the list of materials to His Majesty later. Liu realizes that he won't be able to use the sword right now, and that he needs to kill some monsters to level up while he's still under the effect of a buff. Daji suddenly hugs him. Saddened, she asks if he's already leaving the tomb, as after such a long separation, she can't bear to be away from him again. Liu gently strokes her head and says that he will always return so he can cultivate internally with them, asking her to be a good girl. Daji replies that it's wonderful, as she will be able to serve the king once again. The protagonist tries to teleport to the novice village, but he is unable to. Shi Mei explains that the village is too far away, so using normal teleportation is not possible. He asks if he's trapped there and how he's supposed to level up. His third consort explains that his jade seal has a teleportation function, and that all he needs to do is think of the place, and he will arrive at his destination. Liu then takes the seal in his hand and concentrates. A portal opens above him. His consorts bow and bid farewell to their lord. Finally, he returns to the village of novices. Tired, Liu says he'll try to kill some monsters later, but at that moment, a crowd of people runs toward him, saying that the world boss has appeared. Looking at them, the protagonist wonders what that could be. A girl yells for everyone to get out of the way. Liu looks up and sees a beautiful, angelic girl flying over him. She lands, stepping on a few men who get irritated by it. However, our beloved protagonist is mesmerized by the girl and remarks that she is very beautiful. He watches her from a distance and remembers that those wings were a super rare item that increased speed. Even though many spent a lot of money trying to get them, few ever succeeded. Sometime later, a group of people was attacking a ginseng tree which, when destroyed, would grant a ripened fruit that served as a precious material to enhance cultivation. Liu was observing from a distance. He thought that this boss likely dropped rare materials, but decided to wait for now. A girl appeared holding a sword and charged toward the tree, delivering several strikes. Even though she was 2 levels below that demon, she felt she could handle the situation. Watching from afar, Liu thought she was very skilled. However, a crack began to open behind Liu, and a root emerged from it, grabbing both of their feet and wrapping them together, trapping them against each other. At that moment, Liu panicked. After trying to hold her, he couldn't take it anymore. The girl then noticed something strange, and asked what that weapon was that he was hiding and pressing against her abdomen. Liu, stammering, said it wasn't what she thought. It was just because she had been moving too much and things had gotten awkward for him. At that moment, a few ginseng fruits appeared beside them. The girl thought they were going to explode, and she was right. The fruits exploded on top of Liu, melting her clothes. Trying to pull himself together, he asked her to think about the magical items they had, as a second wave of explosions was approaching. The girl replied that she had an item called Phoenix Feather, which could get them out of there, but she couldn't use it at that moment. Liu told her not to worry, that he knew how to activate it. However, he let himself be carried away by strong emotions, and commented that he was smelling something really good. Annoyed, the girl reminded him that the next wave of explosions was coming, and that this was definitely not the time to be thinking about things like that. The girl asks him to activate the item quickly. He pulls her necklace with his mouth and tells her to stop moving. Then, he manages to activate the phoenix quickly. The girl is impressed, as it would normally take time to activate. The phoenix directly attacks the ginseng tree, and they manage to break free. The other people are somewhat upset, partly because the protagonist is siding with the girl, and partly because they find the power gap between paying and non-paying players in the game unfair. At that moment, the ginseng tree returns to its mutant form. The protagonist tells the girl not to worry, that he will take care of it. The men around them mock the protagonist, who is only level 9 and wants to face the boss alone. Hearing the comments, the girl remembers that her items are stored in the city warehouse and thinks that if things go wrong, she'll retreat. Even if it's embarrassing, it's better than dying and losing her gear. With the phoenix necklace in his mouth, the protagonist smiles and then jumps at the tree, activating the phoenix once again. The creature attacks the tree again. The surrounding people are completely shocked, while the phoenix continues to burn the demonic tree. The protagonist returns to the ground, being watched from afar by the girl, and manages to defeat the ginseng tree. Everyone is amazed by the power of that magical item. Then, a system message appears, congratulating Liu Nian for successfully defeating the ginseng tree. In addition to receiving rewards, he levels up from 9 to 12. The girl is fascinated. He used the phoenix 3 times in a row. Those 2 traders watch Liu from a distance, and Chao comments that Liu has many treasures and that they should find a way to rob him later. People around the protagonist become euphoric. The girl hears someone say there's something hidden in his mouth, something that could instantly activate magical items. She then thinks that might really be the secret behind his power. At that moment, the protagonist is looking at the phoenix item in his hand, until it breaks. Liu panics, knowing that item was worth the equivalent of a house in the city. The girls start running toward him, calling him a hero and wanting to be with him. But the girl thinks that if she kisses him, she'll find out his secret, because she believes he won't be able to resist. She starts running toward him, knocking down all the other girls in her way. As she gets close, Before he can say anything, she kisses him, leaving the protagonist completely confused. They kiss for so long that they end up lying on the ground naturally. The girl realizes she didn't find anything, and the protagonist, gasping for air, says he was just going to tell her he broke her phoenix necklace. The girl gets up and replies that it was only 3 million. She explains that since he blocked the explosion earlier, his gear was damaged. She invites him to go to the Manhwa Tower auction house to take a look. The protagonist, shocked, says the things there are way too expensive. She grabs his hand and says it's just a thank you, and that now they should go to her apartment to change clothes. In truth, the girl is fuming. She lost her first kiss and didn't discover anything. She's not going to let it slide and is determined to search him thoroughly. She then thinks, with determination, tonight I'll take everything from him. Arriving at her house, the protagonist is startled by the size of the mansion located in the VIP area. Looking inside, he starts doing the math. The in-game currency is 1-to-1, so that residence is worth millions. He enters her room and is enchanted by everything, even throwing himself onto the bed. The girl comments that the last battle left her feeling very dirty, so she's going to take a shower. And so she does. At that moment, the protagonist wonders how he ended up at that level, and whether she might somehow be offering herself to him. While showering, the girl says she's glad she bought a box of charming incense earlier. She applies the product to her body and states that as soon as he faints, she'll look for whatever he's hiding. Sometime later, she returns to the room. Since there was still some time before the Manhwa Tower auction, they could rest for a while. The protagonist and his friend, seeing the situation, get excited. She asks how his legs are doing, and he replies that they're feeling great. Then she asks if he wants to try a little. Smelling the incense, he leans in to sniff her and, unable to hold back, jumps on top of her, saying he can't take it anymore. Confused, the girl wonders why he didn't pass out from the smell. At that moment, she remembers what happened earlier. She had gone to a merchant to ask if he had something that could knock anyone out. The merchant offered her a box and explained that simply knocking someone out might not be effective, but the vial inside contained something much stronger. She decided to buy it. Back in the present, she realizes the merchant had actually sold her an aphrodisiac instead of a knockout elixir. The protagonist kisses her, and she ends up giving in to the moment and the situation. The next day, she's wrapped in the sheets, thinking that she didn't manage to uncover anything. And on top of that, got too involved in something that lasted more than 6 hours. Liu apologizes for that. She gets up in a panic and says that apologizing won't help. Now he's the son-in-law of the Fang family. She grabs a virtue manual and tells him that regardless, he's her partner now. If she finds out that he's not walking the straight path, she threatens to cut off his little buddy. She walks away and says it's getting late and they need to go to the Manhwa Tower auction. At that moment, she collapses to the floor, and he, worried, asks what happened and if she's okay. She turns to him and says, "It's all his fault." Liu apologizes again. She throws a card at him and says it has a 1 billion limit, asking him to leave. The protagonist accepts immediately, but later goes into shock when he realizes the card's limit. Miss Fang returns to bed and tells him he can buy whatever he wants, as she's going to rest for a while. As he gets ready, the protagonist thinks he doesn't like depending on anyone, but for the sake of his father's safety, he'll accept it for now. Lying in bed, Miss Fang reflects that the night was very good, that Liu is a strong man, and if he trains a bit, he'll become a great asset to the Fang family. Sometime later, upon arriving at Manhwa Tower, Liu thinks to himself that just the entry fee is 1 million. He wonders if this is the world of big spenders. At that moment, he notices someone familiar nearby. It's his ex-girlfriend, together with her current partner. Chow asks why a beggar is trying to enter the auction. The trader mocks the protagonist and says she was very lucky to have chosen Brother Chow. Otherwise, her life would be a mess. The protagonist calls them a despicable couple and says he'll show them what true wealth looks like today. A receptionist asks if he wants to participate in the auction and informs him that, in order to do so, he must prove he has a fortune exceeding 10 million. At that moment, the protagonist thinks that he will indeed have to use Feng Xie's money. but decides he will repay her for it later. The traitorous couple starts laughing at the protagonist. Chao declares that if Liu has the money to enter the auction, he will live-stream himself eating feces. The girl, laughing, says she knows just how poor he is, which makes the people around them start mocking the protagonist. However, he pulls out the card he received from Feng Qier, leaving everyone around stunned, as it takes more than 100 million in spending to possess such a card. The couple suspects the card is fake, and asks security to check it thoroughly. The guard approaches the protagonist and warns that, if the card is fake, he will suffer the consequences. But when the card is scanned, it is instantly approved. The guard returns to the entrance and informs the protagonist that he is welcome in the VIP area. The guard turns to the two traitors and tells them not to cause a scene, and if they must eat feces, to do it near the local chemical toilet. The two are left speechless, while the people around laugh at them. Even so, they stand up and walk toward the auction entrance. Chao claims that Liu will pay for making them go through such humiliation, but they are stopped as the entrance is exclusive to VIPs, and they only have a standard gold card. Chao glances to the side, sees the size of the line, and thinks it's the worst day of his life. The girl is furious that Chao couldn't get into the VIP area with her, and having been humiliated by Liu, decides she needs to find someone much richer. Sometime later, inside the auction room, Liu is seated, reflecting on the rumors he heard about treasures and cultivation techniques often auctioned there. Meanwhile, Chao watches the protagonist from a distance and assumes he must have stolen or obtained that card illegally. At that moment, the Madame of Baohua Tower asks for everyone's attention and announces the beginning of the session. She presents the first item, an ice jade incense, a high-level artifact refined with essences from various rare fragrances. When used in battle, it restores 50% of the user's health. The starting bid is 1 million, with minimum increments of 100,000. Several bids begin. Chao stands up, offers 2 million, and says he'll give it as a gift to his girlfriend, because, unlike a certain someone, he knows how to choose presents, even after 3 years of dating. Smiling, he mentally challenges the protagonist. Liu raises his paddle and offers 4 million. People around say the item isn't worth that much, as it's just a support artifact. Chao, at that moment, realizes he can't compete with someone who holds a gold black card. The hostess strikes the gavel and closes the deal at 4 million. She congratulates the winner and announces the next item. Upon receiving the incense, the protagonist thinks it could save lives and is therefore worth every penny. The girl, now intrigued, wonders if Liu was provoked by Chao's words, and if so, she won't turn him down. The following rounds go by without any particularly special items, just as the protagonist suspected. Then comes the final round, featuring an item called the 9 Luminaria's Azure Dragon Cloak. The protagonist gets excited upon seeing it. The hostess explains that the item is made with the finest golden thread, imbued with the essence of dragon bones, and grants exceptional physical and magical attack and defense, turning its wearer into a walking powerhouse. The starting bid is 3 million, with minimum increments of 100,000. Everyone in the room shows great interest. Chao stands and places a bid. The girl praises him, while he only wonders what the protagonist will do next. Liu stands and announces a bid of 10 million. Everyone is shocked by the amount, with many reacting in frustration or anger. The hostess becomes interested in Liu, as she didn't expect to see such a big spender at a regular auction. She says she won't let him slip away, and finalizes the sale at 10 million. The protagonist turns to Chao and says, "This is what it means to be truly rich, and you're not even close to my level." Liu then decides that everyone who insulted him will pay. The traitor, realizing the situation, begins to think of a way to get close to Liu again, and decides that she will return to him. The protagonist arrived at the locker room of Baohua Tower. He felt very good in his new outfit, until his ex-girlfriend appeared at the door, saying she had made a mistake and wanted a second chance. Smiling, the protagonist asked if she wasn't with Jin Chao now, and why she was crawling back to him. The girl approached, apologized, and said she had made a mistake. Since they had not celebrated their 3-year dating anniversary, she intended to make it up to him that night. Looking at that viper, the protagonist thought that, at this point, she meant nothing to him anymore, and he had already seen far better. He then recalled his beautiful consorts. Rejecting the woman, The protagonist said that during their 3-year relationship, she had never wanted to do anything, claiming it would only happen after marriage. But with Jin Chao, it had been different. At that moment, someone arrived at the locker room door and asked why there was so much noise. Liu was surprised to see that it was the madam of Baohua Tower. She approached and asked if he had some time to talk that night. Avoiding looking directly into her eyes, the protagonist grew excited at the proposal. Meanwhile, his ex, fallen to the ground, watched the two of them. The madam then kicked the traitor, saying that a mediocre person like her should be content with cleaning the tower's bathrooms. Chao arrived at that moment, accusing the protagonist of being a fraud and bringing some guards with him. The men asked Liu to cooperate with the investigation and hand over his card so they could verify the account. Liu handed over the card, but mentally called out to Miss Fang, asking her to save him from any trouble. The pair of traitors gathered again and began mocking the protagonist. However, the guard announced that the card had been verified and was indeed registered in Mr. Liu's name. The protagonist felt relieved, mentally thanking Miss Fang for changing the account information just in time. Before leaving, the guard warned Chao that if he continued slandering others, he would be sent for interrogation. Irritated, Chao turned to Liu and asked how a rat like him could have obtained such a card and what trick he had used. Laughing, Liu replied that he loved seeing Chao so angry. Furious, Chao drew his sword, saying he would eliminate Liu. Confident, the protagonist challenged him, saying he wanted to test his new outfit. However, the lady of the tower struck Chao with her fan and stated that it was enough, threatening to eliminate him if he insisted on fighting inside Baohua Tower. Beaten, Chao realized it was better not to mess with her. As he and the ex-girlfriend reached the door, before they could say anything else, the lady of the tower kicked them out. Turning to the protagonist, the lady of the tower said he now owed her a favor and asked how he intended to repay her. Liu thanked her for the help and offered to buy her dinner. She refused, saying that dinner was not necessary, and suggested he come to her room to talk a little. Liu, remembering he had just spent the previous night with Fang Qier and fearing he would be exhausted, hesitated, asking if that wouldn't be inappropriate, as she seemed to be a married woman. Sadly, she asked if he was suggesting she was too old. Approaching him, she claimed to have far more skills than any younger woman. Whispering something in his ear, she left the protagonist desperate to escape, claiming he had something urgent to resolve. However, she stopped him, asked him to listen, and then pulled him into a kiss. While kissing him, she thinks she heard that he might have something hidden in his mouth, and she wants to search for it herself. She tastes the same flavor as her older sister, but wonders if her sister had not been sealed in the tomb of Xuanyuan. Then she thinks, if there's a trace in the mouth, there must be one elsewhere too. She kneels down and tells the protagonist that she will help him relax a little. She realizes it is indeed the taste of her older sister, as well as that of Sister Hu and Sister Wang. At that moment, the protagonist wonders if this is how the rich live. The young woman questions who else, besides Emperor Xin, could have had the services of her sisters. She had heard that Emperor Xin once worked at the Celestial Marriage Registration Office, but was demoted to the human realm for frequently missing work. The protagonist, feeling extremely hot and unable to hold back any longer, ends up setting off fireworks. The girl stands up and asks how it was for him, and trembling, Liu responds that it was incredible, absolutely fantastic. She then offers him a cell phone, saying that since he is new there, he might not yet have a way to communicate, and now he would have her contact. If he needed anything, he could call her, as Qingzhuya would always be available for him. The protagonist becomes excited upon realizing that in that world there were also cell phones, as he thought everyone still used talismans to communicate. Smiling, she says that Liu is funny, because using talismans was something from ancient times. Nowadays, people use cell phones for distant calls and telepathy for close-range communication. She hugs Liu and asks if he would like her to teach him telepathy. Suddenly, a light appears in front of Liu. It is the Emperor's jade seal, making Ya certain that he must be the reincarnation of Emperor Xin. At that moment, she gives him a storage ring and explains that leaving a cell phone exposed could cause trouble. But with the ring, he could store it safely. He thanks her, and she responds that it's no problem. However, she then remembers her sister, who has been trapped for 1,000 years, and how her family had faced difficult times since then. The protagonist wonders if Ya might be working with Shen Gongbao, but the girl tells him to relax, as she would not betray him. The protagonist is surprised to realize that she was able to read his mind. She warns him to be more careful with his thoughts around powerful people, as they can see what is on someone's mind. The protagonist then starts praising her in every possible way. Embarrassed, the Lady of the Tower replies that he does not seem like Emperor Xin, and asks if all the time away had softened him. But she quickly asks him to stop joking, reminding him that the place was dangerous. She picks up a book of teachings about the mortal journey, and tells him to try to learn something from it. The protagonist thanks her for her kindness, and asks if the tower sells information, as he wanted to know something about his father and cousin. She confirms and says she will make the request, and they will probably get a reply in a few days. The protagonist thanks her and says he will return to cultivating, so as not to take more of her time. She answers that she would have stayed longer with him, as she thought they would spend most of the night together. At that moment, a short man appears and asks if he can talk to her late into the night, since he has a lot of free time. Annoyed, she asks if he ever gets tired. The man insists, offering her his great-grandfather's treasure in exchange for her company. Irritated, she spits something into the man's mouth, who comments that the taste was a bit salty that day and asks if she is feeling well. Furious, she yells at him to leave. While in the background, the protagonist recognizes his little ones in the man's mouth. Sometime later, the protagonist is leaving the tower when the short man calls out to him, asking Liu to wait. Looking back, the protagonist wonders if the man realized what he had just eaten. The protagonist turned around and asked what the man wanted. The short, irate man said that even though Liu was just a mortal, Sister Qingqiu served him willingly. The protagonist wondered if that man was about to try and hit him. But suddenly the man grabbed Liu's hand and, crying, asked how he had managed to win over Sister Qingqiu, or if he had some trick up his sleeve. Seeing the situation, the protagonist questioned whether that man was an idiot. Liu then turned and said he didn't have time, as he was going to hunt some monsters to level up. The man clung to Liu's legs, saying that killing monsters was nothing compared to this issue, and begged the protagonist to teach him some trick. The man revealed he was from the Tiangang sect and claimed they offered a wide range of cultivation resources. At that moment, the protagonist remembered that this guild was known as a black market, and that having this man as an ally would be a great boost in the business world. So, the protagonist told the man that if he really wanted to know the secret, he would have to prove he was willing to pay for it. The man showed several items and explained that the prices of those rare items were much lower than at the tower auction, offering them as a gift to the protagonist. Confident, Liu thought he had already expected that from this guy, and that surely those were valuable items. The man began explaining the full uses of the items and asked if Liu could now reveal his trick. Liu then offered a book, saying it detailed the art of intimacy between a man and a woman, including various techniques. The book also helped nurture one's essence, benefiting both body and mind. Happy, the man thanked the protagonist, and after reading a little of the book, he commented that it was indeed a definitive guide. Sneaking away, the protagonist thought that he had written down everything Sudaji had taught him in that book, and now he could level up a bit more. Elsewhere, in a local forest, the protagonist was surrounded by forest wolves. Probably over 100 in that place. Prepared with his new items, Liu said he was ready to crush them. He charged at several wolves and eliminated them all with a single blow. A system message appeared, congratulating him for reaching level 20. Sitting on the ground, the protagonist analyzed that the potions and talismans from the little man had been excellent, greatly accelerating his growth. However, he remembered that he still didn't have a class, and said he would head to the main hall to take a look. Arriving at the main hall, the attendant asked how she could help him. He replied that he had reached level 20, and asked if she could assist him in changing his class to warrior. The girl tried, but failed. The protagonist then asked if he could change to swordsman, but again it failed. The attendant apologized and said that the system indicated he did not meet the requirements for a class change. Desperate, the protagonist said that this was ridiculous, and asked why. Leaving the place, he wondered if it had something to do with his identity as an emperor. He then decided to return and ask Sudaji about the situation. Returning to the tomb, he noticed that his emperor form had reappeared. When Daji saw him arriving, She ran to him and said she had missed him. Liu replied that his boost was almost over and that he had returned to recharge it. He asked why he couldn't change his class. Daji explained that because of his imperial bloodline, he could not be compared to mere commoners. She then said that she would prepare a spiritual fruit, which had the power to raise his limits. But he would need to be conservative with special techniques for 3 days. Liu thanked her for this. His second consort appeared, saying that she too had missed him and was very happy to be able to serve him. Consort Mei commented that from now on, he shouldn't have a favorite anymore, but rather share his love among all of them. Daji explained that while he was away, they had channeled their cultivation to create a unique artifact for him. The protagonist became excited upon hearing this, and Daji asked him to follow her. The protagonist then came across a radiant red bed. Daji said that this artifact would make his cultivation twice as fast. Embarrassed, Liu said that this must truly be a precious treasure. The girls then climbed onto the bed and asked what he was waiting for to start cultivating. We'll continue in the next episode. For more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you next time.